Okay, everyone, I want you to do something for me right now. Um, if you are driving, just glance at the dashboard clock for a second.
Or if you were at home, look at the microwave or your phone.
Yeah, or that ticking clock on the wall that you usually ignore completely. Just look at those numbers. Watch them change. 10:01, 10:02.
The relentless march, right? It just keeps going.
Exactly. It feels so absolute. It feels like this prison cell made entirely of numbers. But what if I told you that everything you think you know about those numbers is, well, wrong?
And we don't mean just slightly inaccurate.
No, I mean fundamentally cosmically incorrect.
We are talking about a complete dismantling of the clockwork universe today.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are setting a vibe that I can really only describe as midnight. It is relaxed, it is a little bit trippy, and it is definitely mind-bending.
Very chilling vibes today. We are settling in for a really deep one.
We really are. We're going to explore the idea that time as you know it, the thing that makes you late, the thing that makes you age, doesn't actually exist.
It is a massive claim, and we aren't just pulling this out of thin air either. We're diving into a specific, fascinating document that promises to, and this is a direct quote from the text, forcibly rip out your stereotyped ideas of time.
Forcibly rip out. I mean, that is aggressive.
Ha! It really is.
I love it, though. It is not a gentle suggestion. It is a full-on intervention.
An intervention for your soul. And to guide us through this, we are opening up the archives. Specifically, we are looking at session 429 of the early sessions, book 9 of the Seth Material.
Right, and this session was recorded on August 14th, 1968.
1968.
Yeah, so picture the era. The summer of love is fading, the world is in total turmoil, and in this quiet living room in Elmira, New York, Jane Roberts and her husband Robert Butts are about to receive a transmission that feels like it is from the year 3000.
Or from outside of years entirely, which is kind of the whole point.
Exactly. Now, before we launch into the cosmos, we need to handle a little bit of housekeeping. First off, for everyone listening, please know that this deep dive will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
We are just here to learn, to explore, and to share this incredible information with you.
And we absolutely must give credit where it is due. This material, the Seth Material, is published by the New Awareness Network. They are the custodians of these archives.
Seriously, we wouldn't be having this conversation without them.
Not at all. And if you find your mind being blown today, and believe me, you will, we strongly encourage you to go straight to the source. Don't just take our word for it. Study the Seth Material books.
You can visit the New Awareness Network website and bookstore at sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions.
That is sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions. Go check it out.
That is where the real deep dive happens. We are just the tour guides standing at the edge of the canyon, pointing down.
Right. So let us talk about the mission of this specific session. Because Seth, the personality speaking through Jane Roberts, is very, very clear about what he wants to achieve here.
He is. He states right up front that the goal is to explore non-time.
Non-time, one word.
One word, non-time. And along with that, the fluidity of the soul. He wants to prove that our definition of a moment, that tick-tock sensation you feel every day, is a complete illusion.
He wants to replace the mechanical clock with something entirely organic.
Yeah, which is such a wild shift in perspective.
So let us set the scene for the listener.
Yeah.
It's August 1968. Jane Roberts is the medium. Her husband, Rob, is the scribe taking the notes.
Right.
Now, usually when people think of a trance session or a seance, they picture, candle.
Total silence, people holding hands in the dark.
Very zen, very passive. We tend to think that to access higher consciousness, you have to completely shut down the brain, be perfectly calm.
But that is not at all what was happening on this particular Wednesday night. The notes actually reveal that right before the session started, Jane and Rob were in the middle of a debate.
A domestic squabble.
Basically, yeah. They were arguing, well, let us call it a spirited discussion about how to manage the questions they wanted to ask Seth. They were stressing out about time management of all things.
Oh, the irony.
Right. They are saying we have too many questions, not enough time, which is deeply ironic considering they were literally about to receive a lecture on how time doesn't exist.
Is the universe having a little laugh at their expense? But here is the really interesting part. Rob, being the protective husband, was worried. He thought, oh no, we are arguing. The vibe is totally ruined. Jane is going to be way too agitated to go into a proper trance.
He thought the signal would be jammed by the emotional static.
But he was totally wrong.
Completely wrong. The notes say Jane wasn't upset or shut down at all. She was fired up.
Fired up.
And that energy, that intellectual stimulation, that friction between them, it actually acted like a jump start. It fueled the entire session.
That is such a key takeaway for anyone listening who does creative work or intuitive work. We always think we need to be in this perfect, peaceful, spa-like state to connect to our best ideas.
But sometimes you need a little fire. Intensity really matters. Sigma often talks about intensity being the fuel of reality itself. So Jane's fired up state was actually the perfect launch pad for this complex material.
So Jane goes into trance, Seth comes through, and Rob, still be the diligent note-taker, decides to break the ice. But he is nervous. He is carrying some baggage from a previous session.
Right. This is what Ray refers to in the notes as the sepia episode.
The sepia episode. Man, it sounds like an old Twilight Zone title.
Next up, the sepia episode, it really does. So Rob is asking about a previous encounter with a personality named Van Elver. Apparently, the connection during that specific encounter had been terrible.
It was weak, it was flickering.
Yeah, Rob described it as sepia, like it was faded, old, monochromatic.
Like looking at an old, dusty photograph.
Exactly. And Rob is anxious about this. He basically asks Seth, hey, are you mad that I asked about this guy? Did I offend you? Is that why the connection was so bad?
He's totally projecting. He's projecting human emotions, pettiness, the silent treatment onto this multidimensional entity.
He is. And I absolutely love Seth's response here. It is so dry. It is so matter of fact. He says, and I quote, suffice it to say, I was not annoyed.
Suffice it to say, you can just hear the tone. It is like, Rob, please,
Yeah.
I am beyond being annoyed by your questions.
Yeah. But Seth actually uses this moment to teach a really important lesson about the nature of communication between realities. Rag thinks the bad connection was emotional. Seth explains it was entirely technical.
Is an IT problem.
It is literally an IT problem. Seth talks about signals. He explains that spiritual communication relies on signals, just like radio waves. He says when circumstances aren't right or atmospheric conditions are off, the connection to a personality like Van Elver is far less than perfect.
So it is just like having bad Wi-Fi.
Yes. If you are trying to stream a movie and it buffers, you don't sit there and think Netflix is angry at you.
Right. You just think low bandwidth.
Exactly. Seth says that when the signal is weak, there is a strain on the medium, so they automatically wait until the signals are clear.
That is honestly so reassuring.
Right.
It demystifies the whole ghost story aspect of channeling. It is not about spirits being moody or withholding secrets from us. It is just, can you hear me now? No. Okay, we will try again later.
It is physics.
Yeah.
Metaphysical physics, sure, but physics nonetheless. And once Seth clears that up, the whole I'm not mad, the signal was just bad thing, he basically brushes the topic aside.
Yeah.
He is done with the small talk.
He is ready for the main course.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where we get into the really interesting stuff. This is where we start ripping out the clock.
Seth introduces a concept that is central to his philosophy, but in this specific session, he gives us a visual for it that is absolutely stunning. He introduces the spacious present.
The spacious present. I want everyone listening to just sit with that phrase for a second. Spacious. Because usually the present feels tiny, right? It is a razor's edge. You snap your fingers and boom, it is gone. It is already the past.
We feel trapped in the now because it is so fleeting. But Seth says, no. The present is spacious, it has room, it has duration.
And to explain this, he gives us an analogy. He asks us to visualize a giant.
Okay, listener, close your eyes if you are in a safe place to do so. Imagine a midnight sky. Pitch black, deep, totally infinite. And projected against that sky is a massive, giant-sized entity, a colossus.
So we are looking at a silhouette of a person but the size of a galaxy.
Correct. Now, look inside the outline of that giant. You don't see skin, you don't see bones or organs.
You see stars.
You see stars, you see planets, you see this massive multitude of glowing lights filling up the silhouette.
Okay, I am picturing it, a giant made of the cosmos. It is a beautiful image.
It is. Now, here's the key. Seth says, let the stars and planets represent moment points.
Moment points. I love that term so much. So that star glowing on the giant's shoulder, that is not a burning ball of gas. That is a Tuesday in 1994.
Exactly. That star is your 10th birthday party. That planet down in the knee is your high school graduation. That nebula glowing in the chest is a moment of profound heartbreak you haven't even experienced yet.
Wow.
They are all there, visible, glowing, and existing simultaneously within the body of this giant.
This immediately breaks the linear timeline. Usually we think of time as a road we're walking down. We leave the past behind us like passing mile markers on a highway. But in this analogy, the past is just a different part of the body.
It is anatomy. The past isn't gone. It is just residing in the left foot.
And this leads to the dual nature of this analogy, which is a little tricky. So walk us through this part.
Okay, so on one hand, the stars are the entity. Just like the cells in your physical body make up your body, those stars, those individual moments, they make up the giant. Without the moments, there is no giant.
Right. I am literally the sum of my experiences.
But on the other hand, the entity's consciousness can travel through these stars.
Wait, so the giant can go visit its own shoulder.
Yes. Seth says there are doorways within his own psychological makeup into experiences.
Doorways. Man, that changes the definition of travel completely.
It really does. We usually think of travel as motion through physical space, going from point A to point B, New York to London. It is about distance. But Seth says this kind of travel is action working within itself.
Action working within itself. That is a heavy concept to wrap your head around.
Think of it like a lucid dream or maybe a very advanced VR simulation. If you are the computer running the simulation, you don't have to drive to the file containing your old photos. You just access it. You shift your focus to it. The entity doesn't travel to the past. It just shifts its awareness into that specific moment point.
So if I'm the giant and I want to experience that Tuesday in 1994 again, I just focus my attention on that particular star.
Yes. And because of the spacious present, that star isn't a dead memory. It is not a sepia photograph like Rob was worried about.
It is a live environment.
Exactly. It is still burning. It is still happening. You can enter it. You can walk around inside it.
Because the star is still shining.
It hasn't burned out just because your linear day-to-day focus moved away from it. To the entity, the entire body is alive at once. The giant doesn't grow 1 foot, and then a leg, and then a torso over 80 years. The giant stands complete in the midnight sky.
That gives me that chilling feeling we talked about at the beginning. It makes you feel very small because you realize your current now is just one tiny flickering star in a massive body.
Yeah.
But it also makes you feel incredibly huge because you are the giant.
You are both the traveler and the terrain being traveled. It is a paradox, but a beautiful one.
Okay, so that is the macro view, the giant in the midnight sky. But Seth doesn't just leave us floating out in space. He actually zooms in. He takes this massive cosmic analogy and makes it microscopic.
Which brings us to the next phase of this, the cellular dive.
Seth shifts the analogy from the midnight sky down to the biological body, your actual physical body.
He asks us to imagine, what if you could consciously enter one of your own cells?
Like Fantastic Voyage, shrinking down in a tiny submarine.
But not physically, consciously. Throwing your pure awareness into a single microscopic cell. Seth calls this capsule comprehension.
Capsule comprehension. I like the sound of that. It sounds like a piece of sci-fi technology.
It really does. He says, if you could throw your consciousness into a cell, you would perceive its seemingly alien experience.
Alien how? Like, is it slimy? Is it dark in there?
It is alien because of how it relates to time. Seth says that inside that cell, you would become aware of that cell's future and its past simultaneously.
Whoa. So the cell knows its own future.
Seth implies that cells are much more than physical. We tend to think of them as just biological bricks, just mindless little machines performing a basic function.
Right, just copying DNA and making proteins.
But Seth suggests the cell possesses a capsule of understanding where the entire cycle of its existence is known. It isn't anxious about what comes next because the pattern is already whole to it.
So the cell in my finger right now, it already knows when it is going to die. It knows its whole life story.
It exists in a state of being where that cycle is a complete unit. It doesn't stress about what is going to happen next Tuesday.
Man, I wish I had that kind of confidence.
Don't we all? But this leads to what I think is the most fascinating and frankly the weirdest metaphor in the entire session. Seth says, time could be thought of as the tissues of the entity.
Time is the tissue of the entity.
Yes. Let that one sink in.
That is just weirdly visceral. It sounds like something out of a David Cronenberg body horror movie. Time is flesh.
It completely changes the texture of the concept, doesn't it? We usually think of time as air or empty space or just a straight invisible line on a graph, something abstract. But tissue implies it is organic, it is alive, it connects things together.
And tissue heals. Tissue grows. Tissue shifts and stars.
Exactly. Seth says the stars and planets inside the giant are constantly shifting. Just as the tissues in your body are constantly regenerating, dying off, being replaced, the stars and planets inside the giant are constantly moving and reorganizing.
So time isn't a road we walk down. It is flesh. It is alive.
It is a medium. It is the actual substance of the entity itself.
Man, I can barely keep track of what day it is.
Yeah.
I struggle with just getting through a regular Monday. And now you are telling me time is shifting star tissue.
It kind of puts your calendar app in perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. I am stressing about a podcast deadline. I mean, a deep dive deadline.
Mm.
And meanwhile, my soul is just out there growing time tissue.
But that's the liberation of it. If time is tissue, it is pliable. It is flexible. It is not a cage. A cage is made of rigid steel bars. Tissue is soft. It yields. It implies that we have way more agency over our experience than we think we do.
I really like that.
Yeah.
It is not a cage. But let us go even deeper into this. Because Seth doesn't stop at cells and tissue. He starts talking about the things that actually live within this time tissue. He starts talking about personalities.
This is where we get into the fluidity of personalities, and it gets even wilder.
Okay, so back to the giant in the sky. The stars are moments, but Seth says these moment points can also represent personalities.
Correct. He suggests that the entity, the greater soul, the giant, sends out portions of its own consciousness on journeys of exploration.
Like sending out space probes.
Or, to stick with the biological analogy we were just using, like the nuclei of a cell traveling through the cell itself.
So the person talking to you right now am a nucleus.
Yeah.
Traveling through the body of my greater self.
In this analogy, yes. You are a personality. You are a moment point that has been sent out to explore and gather experience.
And this is where Rob, the note-taker, gets his mind completely blown.
Right. Yes. Rob actually stops writing for a second and notes in the margins that this is entirely new data. Because Seth drops an absolute bombshell here. He says, some personalities can be part of more than one entity.
Wait, pause on that. Part of more than one entity.
Yeah, just let that sit there. We usually think of the soul as a singular, straight lineage. I belong to my soul. It is a closed loop. It is a private silo.
Right. My soul is mine, your soul is yours.
But Seth is saying, no, you could be a shared project.
So I could be a spiritual joint venture.
The joint venture, exactly. Two or more giants could contribute energy to create you.
That is wild. It makes the self feel less like a walled fortress and more like a busy intersection.
Seth uses a fish analogy here to explain it, and it is very helpful. He says personalities are like fish. They can swim to other streams.
I love that image. The streams being the entities.
The streams are different flows of consciousness, different entities. And the personalities aren't trapped in just one river. The boundaries are not arbitrary stone walls. They are fluid. A personality knows all its relationships.
So we aren't fenced in. If I'm a fish, I can swim from the entity A stream right over into the entity B stream.
Yes. Seth says within them is the knowledge of all their relationships. Just because you are swimming in one particular stream right now doesn't mean you haven't swum in others in the past, or that you aren't deeply connected to others right now.
This makes the universe feel so much more connected. It is not just isolated bubbles floating around. It is a massive, overlapping hydrological system of consciousness.
A vast network. And here is the ultimate evolution of that fish. Seth says a personality can eventually become an entity itself.
Oh, so the fish eventually becomes the stream.
In a sense, yes. Or the fish becomes the giant. Seth says the requirement for this evolution is a highly developed knowledge of the use of energy and its intensities.
Energy and its intensities.
Mm-hmm.
Notice he didn't say the requirement is being a really good person or following all the rules.
No, and that is a key distinction in the Seth material.
Mm-hmm.
It is not moralistic in the traditional punishing religious sense. It is technical. It is about mastery of the medium.
You have to know how to drive the car before they give you the keys to the fleet.
Exactly. Psychological structures move through value climates, just as physical atoms move through our physical time.
Value climates. That sounds lovely. What does that mean exactly?
It implies that the environment of the soul isn't air or empty space. It is meaning. It is value. That is what you actually move through. You gravitate towards what matters, towards intensity.
Which brings us to a really crucial point in this session. If we are moving through value and intensity, then what happens to clocks? What happens to seconds and minutes and hours?
They completely dissolve. They become irrelevant.
And this is where Seth argues that a thought or a feeling is actually closer to the true nature of time than minutes or hours are.
Just think about that in your own life. When you are deep in a thought or gripped by a really strong emotion, the clock doesn't matter. The experience itself is the duration.
Right. We have all felt that. 5 minutes of intense joy feels completely different than 5 minutes of staring at a wall in total boredom.
We call that subjective. We say, time flies when you're having fun, as if it is just a trick our brain is playing on us. But Seth is saying, no, that is the baseline reality. The clock on the wall is the trick.
The feeling is the actual yardstick.
Exactly. He describes it as the pulse of thought. He says a thought can be intense, then fade away, then grow intense again. That rise and fall, that pulsing action, that is the true structure of time.
So time isn't a straight, flat line. It is a heartbeat.
It is a rhythm, an emotional, energetic rhythm.
Seth admits here that he is really trying to mess with us, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, he knows exactly what he is doing. He uses the phrase shock treatment.
Shock treatment.
He says, as a sort of shock treatment, we must almost forcibly rip out your stereotyped ideas of time. He knows this is deeply confusing to Rob and Jane. He knows it goes against literally everything we are taught from childhood.
He talks about the confusion of nonlinearity. He says if we experienced reality like an entity does, it would look like complete chaos to us.
Right. Imagine feeling a future event and then suddenly feeling a distant past event and then a present moment all just jumping around constantly. To our linear human brains, that is madness. That is schizophrenia.
We need the straight line just to stay sane, to know when to wake up and go to work.
But to the inner self, to the giant, it has an inner logic. It makes perfect sense because the connection isn't chronological. It isn't this happened before that. The connection is emotional. The connection is thematic.
Oh, I see. Like watching a movie out of order, but understanding the central theme so well that the order doesn't matter.
Or listening to a massive symphony. You might hear a specific musical motif in the first movement, and then you don't hear it again until the fourth movement. They are separated by physical time, but they are connected by musical logic. The entity hears the entire symphony all at once.
That is a beautiful way to put it. The entity hears the whole song as a single, complex chord.
And that leads to the ultimate conclusion of this session, the absolute mic drop moment from Seth.
Time does not exist.
He just comes right out and says it plainly.
He says, basically what you call time does not exist. I'm trying to tell you what does exist instead.
And what exists instead?
Non-time and entities.
Non-time. And notice it is not just no time, it is a specific state of being, non-time.
And he makes a really funny comparison here to drive the point home to Rob. He says, entities keep track of their various personalities, all those fish swimming in the streams, far better than we keep track of our own fleeting thoughts.
That burns a little bit, honestly.
It is so true, though. How often do you just completely lose a thought? You walk into a room and think, what was I just thinking about? What did I come in here for? An entity never loses a personality. It never loses a single moment point.
Because in non-time, nothing is ever lost. It is all held in the spacious present.
Exactly. Nothing fades to sepia unless the signal is just weak in that moment. So let us bring this all home for the listener. We have looked at the giant made of stars, the conscious cell, the fish swimming between streams, the pulse of thought. We have forcibly ripped out the clock. Why does this matter? Why should the person listening to this audio right now care about non-time?
It matters deeply because it completely reframes your everyday existence. You aren't just a physical body moving blindly through a depleting resource called time. You are a conscious hour. You are an alive moment.
Conscious hours and alive moments. I'd absolutely love that phrasing from the notes.
It suggests that we are immensely more fluid, more deeply connected, and far less bound than we think we are. If you feel stuck in your life right now, stuck in a specific time of your life, this perspective says to you, you are the entity. You can move through the stars. You can shift the tissue.
It gives you profound agency. It gives you vastness.
And it reminds you that the boundaries, the walls between past and future, between you and other people, are much, much softer than they look.
And Seth, being Seth, can't just leave the session without a joke.
He has to leave Rob and Jane with a little bit of cosmic humor.
He signs off the session with, "No time is my time."
Which is such a massive dad joke for a day-embodied superconsciousness.
It really is. No time is my time. I appreciate a multi-dimensional entity that genuinely loves a bad pun.
It keeps it grounded. It reminds us that spiritual enlightenment doesn't have to be heavy and serious all the time. It can be playful.
Absolutely. Now listen, we have done our absolute best to summarize this mind-bending session for you, but there is nothing, and I mean nothing, quite like reading the source material yourself.
We have given you the map today, but you really need to go walk the territory.
We strongly encourage you to study the Seth Material books. Go straight to the source. Visit the New Awareness Network website and bookstore.
That is sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions.
Again, that is sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions. Support the preservation of this incredible knowledge. Buy the books. Read them. Let your own mind get bent a little bit.
It is an investment in your own capsule comprehension.
Nice callback. I like that.
Thank you. I try.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to carry this specific thought with you. The next time you look at a clock, or worry about being late for a meeting, or regret something that happened years ago in the past, just remember the giant in the midnight sky.
Remember that the stars are inside you.
And remember that the past and the future are really just rooms down the hall.
And you hold the keys.
But here is one last thing to mull over before we go. If our past and future are just different stars in the giant's body, existing simultaneously in the spacious present, what happens when you sleep? What happens when you dream?
Oh, that is a big question.
Are you just closing your physical eyes to go visit a different part of the time tissue? Think about that déjà vu feeling you get sometimes. Maybe it's not a glitch in your brain. Maybe you just bumped into your own time tissue in the dark.
You brushed up against another star.
Exactly. Enjoy your spacious present, everyone.
We will see you in non-time.
Catch you on the next dive.